Hi everyone and welcome back to Rachel's Enchanting Cakes. Now today's recipe is my delicious carrot cake. I have chosen to decorate this on more of an Easter theme. We have got some lovely orange flavoured buttercream. I have added a few mini eggs to the top. However, this cake can easily be covered in fondant if you're wanting to decorate something in an awful lot more detail. The full recipe and method, as always, and I guide you through everything in a simple step-by-step format. Happy baking everyone, and let's make a start. Okay, so now we need to line our bake tins. That's the first thing, and I find the more baking paper you use, the less crusty the cake is. For this I am using stalk, and you simply want to go around the outside of the tin and start by adding the baking parchment. For the outside of each 8-inch tin I add 6 pieces, and then directly to the centre I add 4 pieces. Simply add plenty of stalk in between each section, and you want to make sure it's completely lined. Tip: if you place a small amount of foil underneath each tin, it will help prevent all of that margarine from leaking all over your oven, as this is a loose based cake tin. Start by measuring out exactly 350 grams of chopped butter. Place this into a mixer and beat on high until light and creamy. Using some light soft brown sugar, you now want to weigh out 350 grams in a separate bowl. This is what your butter should look like when it is beaten for long enough. You now want to add the sugar that you have just weighed out, and then beat this again until you can no longer see any grains of sugar. This may take a while because this time we are working with real butter and not margarine. Whilst our butter and sugar are mixing, we're going to prepare our flour mixture. So using some normal plain white flour, start by weighing out 350 grams. Taking some baking powder, you now want to add 2 tablespoons directly to the flour. I only add 1 on camera because I then mix it in and then add another. Finally, add 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon directly to the flour and 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, and mix this in so it's all well incorporated. I then simply covered mine with a little bit of cling film and placed this to one side. For this sized cake, you are going to need 6 large eggs, and then for the flavour I use some freshly squeezed orange juice. I add 3 tablespoons. However, if you want to, you can use shop-bought orange juice, and if you're not piping it, you could always add a bit of the orange zest. Before we get round to adding the carrots and the nuts, we now need to add the flour and eggs to this lovely creamed butter and sugar mixture. This can take a little bit of practice, especially with butter. So add some eggs first and then continue to add the flour. You want to prevent curdling. If it does curdle, add some extra flour and beat on high for roughly 30 seconds. Don't waste your batter. Most of the time it can be rescued. Now in total I have 400 grams of grated carrots. They add an awful lot of flavour. It makes it absolutely delicious. And in here there is 110 grams of pecan nuts. Now I have blended the pecan nuts, but if you want some slightly bigger pieces inside the cake instead, you can just simply chop them. Add both of these ingredients directly to your cake batter, and then you simply want to mix them in. Now simply line both of your baking tins evenly, and then you want to bake this in a fan assisted oven at 160 degrees centigrade for between an hour and 10 minutes. I also find if you fold up some baking parchment and place it directly on the top of the tins, it helps prevent the top of the cakes from going crusty. These are fresh out of the oven, and you first of all want to test the cake. If the cake tester comes out completely clear like it has here, it is cooked. I then simply place them directly onto a cooling rack and I leave them to cool completely. You'll find the baking paper doesn't stick to the sides, they are not crusty, and it's so beautiful and moist. Okay then, so the American buttercream that I am using. I have got 200 grams of butter, and for every 200 grams of butter you want to be adding 300 grams of icing sugar. You are going to need 2 batches for an 8-inch cake like this. Start by beating your butter until it's light and creamy. Add the icing sugar. Now for flavour, I'm usually using freshly squeezed orange juice. It's lovely with orange zest. However, because I'm choosing to do some piping work, you will find if you add the zest, sometimes they can get stuck in the piping nozzle. Along with some cooled down boiled water, I then simply beat this until it's all light and fluffy and well incorporated. Using a Wilton 2D piping nozzle, you can use any piping tip you want, or you could simply fill this like I do in the Victoria sponge tutorial. I simply pipe all around the outside and then neatly on the inside. This gives a lovely deep layer of buttercream, but as you can see from the images, if you're not planning on covering this cake with any form of fondant or a buttercream on the outside, it leaves a lovely pattern just in the middle. So simply completely cover this and then place it in the fridge. The reason you want to place it in the fridge is to prevent the top layer from crushing that buttercream. It needs to go lovely and solid again. Now simply add the second layer of cake after it's been in the fridge before repeating that piping technique directly on the top. It's pretty much finished. I just choose to add a few mini eggs. Now remember, we do have the pecan nuts inside the cake, and this does look lovely as well with pecan nuts on top, but I wanted to make mine a little bit more Easter-like. After I've added these, I then choose to add some freshly grated orange zest directly to the centre, because remember, we can't place it in the piping bag. And it really is as simple and as easy as that. I really do hope I've helped you again today. I'm quite enjoying sharing these recipes with you. I will be back soon with an awful lot more new, completely free content. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you all for your amazing support.